Welcome back, guys, to Blondes Building Equity. Today on our podcast, we have Jake Harris, and he has done over 1,200 deals. This is absolutely crazy. We're only on our third one right now, and that was mind-blowing. So the fact that you've done 1,200, so exciting to have you on today. Introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you for having me. And yeah, it feels like I kind of just got started yesterday. And so I remember being in your guys's position. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad 20 some odd years ago when I got out of the army. I feel like that was so many people's light bulb moment. And then, like you said, we did a nationwide kind of flip fund, did 1,200 houses. We aggregated some single family rental portfolios. We sold those off to Invitation Homes, which was Blackstone, and then also worked with some of these institutional single family buyers and rental funds. And then the last 7 years, I've kind of pivoted and we've been doing a lot more commercial real estate. I'm mostly focused in Central Texas, Austin, and San Antonio. I wrote a book called Catching Knives, a guide to investing into distressed commercial real estate. It actually highlights, so my 20-year career was in the middle of it kind of cut out there. I met Robert Kiyosaki. He was telling me to be cautious, cautious young man as I was, in the early 2000s, getting this rise. And then it starts out and you get to hear a little bit of my story of sitting on the street corner down in Tucson and crying about losing everything and having a negative net worth and going from a millionaire before 30 to a negative net worth, no money. What do I do? The girl I was dating, dumped me. My brothers, were like, you're a dick. We're leaving, and just like this misery. And it kind of starts from there. And that was kind of the 2.0 version of my life. And now that I'm working on the other side of that. So I help people understand that it's all not sunshine and rainbows, but also how do you prepare for that? How do you systematically approach investing? It doesn't matter if it's your fourth deal, it's your 127th, your 1300th. The thing is that there's some clues that are left out there and some things that you can put into place no matter how many deals you've done. And so that's either, through the book or commercial real estate or net lease or passive income. I talk a lot on a lot of those topics. And so here's me now. I run a private equity real estate firm.
That was amazing, by the way. We definitely can relate to that, how you were saying you were mildly successful. You were a millionaire. And then, I don't know if that's mildly, but you were successful. You were a millionaire. And then you lost that. And we're kind of in the same situation where I wouldn't say like I was never a millionaire, but I had made really good money through real estate and other ventures that we did. And we had other successful businesses. And we decided to deploy that into real estate. And we're at the point now where we're almost starting from ground zero again. And we looked at each other the other day and we're like, okay, we're 25 and 26 now. We thought that we were on the right path. We're like, we're going to invest into real estate. We're on the right path. And then we lost it all because of some bad decisions. But it's so empowering to hear that because sometimes you do need to start from ground zero again. So what's the one short lesson you did learn when you went back to ground zero? Looking back now, what did you learn from that?
So one of the big things is experience. Trial and error is one of the most effective teachers, but it's actually the worst teacher to learn from. It's the most effective to sing, but wisdom is way more important. Being around the right people, leveraging other people's experiences. So I think it was, I'll kind of butcher this as a phrase, but it was like, leverage other people's knowledge, and leverage is one of the biggest keys that you can understand. And that is, and when I say leverage, a lot of people for me, it's like, you think of like the leverage of the financing on a deal. Did you over leverage? Did you under leverage? I'm getting a 75%, loan to value. But what happens is leverage is all across the board, leveraging other people's time, leveraging other people's wisdom or experience, leveraging, all of these other things. Is to understand leverage is the biggest thing that you can unlock as a business owner, as an investor, as a, whatever, is how do you play to and get amplified a 3x, 5x, 10x results from what you ultimately want to do. And if it's in real estate, that can be in a lot of different ways. And so you do not have to be an expert at all things. And actually, you don't have to be an expert at anything. But you have to figure out how to get a system put together and then leverage other people's experience. And that's why, one of the points I make is oftentimes people can white knuckle a goal. And what I mean by that is almost anybody can go lose some weight, by I just don't eat for the next 30 days. I can lose weight. I can lose 10, 20 pounds. Well, and to not belittle that of making $1 million or having $1 million net worth, but people can white knuckle. And I'm a perfect example of that. Is with a lack of systems, you just grind really hard, flip some houses, do some things, and you became a millionaire. But if you don't have a system in place, you're only having one-time success.
Right.
And so by having good habits or good systems in place, you can get predictable and repeatable success. And so that oftentimes in the way, that works like changing your diet, work out every single day, your end results. And so lead indicators versus lag indicators. Lead indicators, I work out every day and I do a intermittent fasting. That's the lead thing that you do every single day. The lag result is I lose 20 pounds. Same thing for your wealth generation is I do this, I generate this many offers, or I, list this many, cold call this many people, or submit this, whatever it is in your particular business. And then the lag result is I add this net worth or this cash flow or this income. So understanding systems are the most important thing that are going to get you, or habits, get you the predictable and repeatable success.
I absolutely love that. And something like the biggest lesson for us lately is that we've just pinpointed, the faster you make it, if it's easy to make, it's easy to lose. So you see these people who have made that quick money, but then all of a sudden they lose it so fast. And it's that's just such a big correlation for us, at least, because if you did it the right way, if you had these systems in place, if you've put in 20 years of knowledge, you're not gonna lose your money overnight in the same way, because the hurdles to not make and the hurdle, the systems to do and to not do. So that's been something really monumental for us. It was anytime we made that quick money, it really did lose just as quick because we didn't have the proper systems or we didn't have the proper knowledge. Yeah. And so it was a great investment into our knowledge for sure. We're okay, that was paying for college, that experience, losing that one. So it's our real estate college fund anytime that we make a mistake, but it always hurts. But then I can tell you what me losing it in that deal versus me reading a book and learning about it, the knowledge that I've learned is so different. And it goes so much further. And so I think that's why the experience aspect of it is also so important, that you can make those systems so what systems actually work. If you don't have the proper experience, that's why it's important to work with other people. I think we're starting to really leverage that and understanding that we can't be an expert at all. We're, in our 20s, we don't know everything, and we have to be super humbling at times because we used to think we knew everything. And now we're let's go find the people who do, you know?
You quickly learn though that you don't know everything when you lose the money and you're I guess I'm not an expert on my third house. What was your first deal like? Your first real estate deal that you ever bought?
The first real estate deal I did, was 20 years ago. I was actually working in construction. I kind of had this side hustle is I would buy cars at auction. And I would buy cars at auction and then sell them from wholesale to retail. And so I'd make $1,000 a car. I was down in Arizona. I was living, and working out of the Bay Area. And I flew down to Arizona to go to an auction. I don't remember what it was, Meacham or Manheim or one of these others, to go buy some cars. And I saw that there was these new houses for sale for $150,000, brand new construction houses. And this is in the early 2000s. Well, in the Bay Area, you couldn't buy an outhouse for $150,000, like a piece of dirt, like it just didn't exist. And so I thought, even though I'd read Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I was going through and reading all the real estate investing books that I could in the nights and the weekends, I just felt like that goal of buying my first deal was so far away, it was going to take me so much money that I just couldn't do it. And then all of a sudden I come to this market where I was like, oh my gosh, I can actually afford to buy one of these houses. And so I bought not the new house, but a fixer upper that needed, some paint, carpet cleanup. My plan was to fly down on the weekends, away from my construction job, fly down, do the work myself, and then fix it up and flip it. Well, life had another, interesting lesson is I bought the house, I closed on it, I'm getting ready to do that. And I got laid off. They said, hey, we're waiting on this permit. I was going to build this shopping center. And they're like, hey, we're delayed. We might be a year or so until we get these permit. And so we don't have work for you. And so we're going to let you go. And I was like, I just bought a house. Like, last week, like what? Like, how am I going to make the mortgage payment? Like, oh my gosh, like that was going to be my money every month that I used to fix up this house. Cause like I used every last nickel and dime. And I think I even borrowed like $1,500 from like family or my mom or something like that. I was just like, I wanted to do my first deal. And so I packed up my truck, a few tools, a chair, some other things. And I drove and I moved into this house.
A chair.
My first
you took a chair?
A chair. I didn't even have a bed. I had no refrigerator. The realtor gave me a mattress, like an old used mattress that I put on the floor. And I slept and lived in this. And I didn't even have a refrigerator. So I bought one of those styrofoam coolers. And it's in Arizona. And so I used to go get bags of ice every couple of days and put it in there because I couldn't afford the refrigerator yet. I wanted to make sure to pay for the flooring and pay for the paint and do those other things. And so I did all the work myself, made it to the finish line. I put it on the market. I sold it quickly and I made $17,000 on the first deal I ever did. And I got my down payment back. And then I was hooked. I was ready. Let's go do it again. The next one I made 25 and then 35 and then 50 and then 70. And then it was like, this is amazing. Well, I was also in the early 2000s when the market was taking off like a rocket ship, especially in Phoenix. And that's where, to your guys' point, I let it get to my own head where I was like, I'm a genius. I know everything. What are you talking about, Robert Kiyosaki, crazy old man? Like, no, I know better than you.
Yeah, I feel that.
Wow. So, okay, then where was the big transition from, and this is really inspiring for us, especially where we're at. And we've just looked at each other and made the decision, that if you stick to anything for 20 years, you're going to be amazing at it. And we can't expect instant gratification. And so we're in it for the long haul. We've got each other's back. Let's push through. So we know, I'm sure probably the last 20 years was a climb for you. So kind of where was the transition when you started to feel like you were getting on your feet with real estate?
And part of it was exactly that. And you can, read the book on how, and, describe some of those other things. But it was like the fact that you just got really beat up, where no sane person would go get back into real estate after that. Like most people were like, easy come, easy go. I'm out. I'm going to go get another job somewhere else. Where I was like, all right, put me back in, coach. Like, let's go. Like, it was like that to me was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I plan on doing this to your point, not for 20 more years. I go for the rest of my life. And I plan on living to more than 140 years old. So I was like, so another 100+ years. And so I was like, so now I'm just playing the long-term game and I'm going to do this forever. I feel like I know less and less every single year. I went off and I went back to school. I now have a master's degree in international real estate and finance. I've done, I have my broker's license. I've, done all these transactions off of 23 states and other things. And I still feel like I know next to nothing. And because the vastness of opportunity that lies out there in real estate is endless. And so that's why I also understand is like, you don't have to be the expert on all these things. And also understanding like who you are as an individual. I think there's a great book called The 6 Areas of Working Genius by Peter Lencioni. I might pronounce his name wrong, but it was like, there's certain things that you're really good at in your personality and the way that you operate in the business. There's certain things that you're okay, working competency, you can kind of do. And then there's a couple of areas that just like suck the energy out of you, that like are a drag. Like you can do them at times, but then what happens is understanding like, where are your core competencies? What are you actually naturally good at? What gives you energy and fires you up and then you're excited to do? Then also making sure that you have those complementary people or seats on the bus that do the things that you don't like doing or you suck at. And so it's a team sport, and realize that if it's a team sport and you're playing a long-term game, you need to create partnerships and deal structures that are in alignment of that. So it sounds like you guys have, at least right now, some good synergies and good connections. So I go, also think about that. If you want money to be exiting out of a deal in 3 years, but Jess is like, I'm thinking 10 years. Like now you have a disalignment of what your plan is. And so playing long-term games with long-term partners and creating a system of a team is very, very important. And that was what I kind of discovered was I was like, there's a lot of things I suck at. And then it was like, I can maybe try to do them, but I get burnt out after a while. And then it was just like, man, I hate this business. I don't like this. I don't like how that does. Well, it's just because it's I'm doing those tasks that suck the energy out of me. And so it's like, how do you make sure to understand who you are? Be self-aware enough to understand your weaknesses, and then get complementary people in your organization or your team to help support that so you can have better long-term success.
How do you start getting people in your team though if you don't have the money? Like, do you just get people to work for free off of like a commission basis?
So number one, it starts with vision. So, and when I say that is a blind archer doesn't know what they're missing. So meaning if you have no goal, you have no vision of where you want to go, you're kind of like Alice in Wonderland when you go to the Mad Hatter and say, which way do I go? And you ask the question, like, where do you want to go? And she's like, I don't know. And so then he's like, it doesn't matter which way you go, because if you don't have a goal or destination in mind, it actually doesn't matter which direction or how you instill that those next steps. So specifically, and why I say in this, there's a framework, and I call this, I'll give you my thing that I kind of teach and coach on now. I don't know if you've heard the African proverb, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. My question was, what if you want to go both fast and far? Well, if you want to go fast and far, you actually have to have a framework and a system for that. And so I call it the fast and far formula. And it's FAST is an acronym: framework, accountability, scale, and team. And then FAR is, freedom, autonomy, and relationships. And so the framework of understanding is you first have to define where you want to go. And most people, 80% of people, actually subscribe to a vision of someone that's leading the way and saying, we're going here. It is not actually about the economic components of it. And I'll give you an example of it, and it'll take a couple minutes of a story here. Is I was at grad school down in Miami, and there was a kid that had just built this 42-story high-rise project. And I say kid, I think he was 28, maybe 30. He built this $100 million project. And I was like, and he made like $25-30 million profit off of it. And I was like, what? That's what I do. That's my dream project. Like, I want to build a skyscraper. And I was like, tell me more. Like, how'd you do this? How'd you build a 42-story project in Miami Beach? And I was like, did your dad do it? Or your family do it? Did you inherit money? Are you smuggling, drugs for the cartel? I don't understand. And he was like, no, I just came from Venezuela, came here a few years ago. I have no money to my name. I have no credit. I've never done this before. I don't know my dad. And so, but the United States is a land of opportunity. And I just showed up and there was a piece of parcel and there was a sign on it that said it was for sale. And so I went and talked to the broker and they said, yeah, it's for sale. It's $8 million. And he's like, wow, that's great. So he's like, and then they said, but you should talk to the people down the street. They just have a similar project. So we walked down there to the architect and the contractor and they said, oh my gosh, we are completely oversubscribed. We sold all of the condos on this particular project. That site's perfect for that. If you ever wanted to develop a tower project, we have a lot of buyers for that product. And so he was like, okay. And so then he's like, who's the architect? Who's the contractor? So they put together the numbers. They had the sales, they tied it up. Like he still hadn't even bought, like he just put it in contract. So then he pre-sold the entire building, had an architect that was drawing it from the plans, the contractor that was going to build it. They had buyers that were putting down deposits. So then the bank was like, okay, we'll finance that because we don't really care about your capabilities. The contractor, the architect, and the sales all connect up. So now it's just a matter of getting out of the way. And so that hit me over the head like a 2x4 when I was like, oh my gosh, how much am I limiting myself? Because I said, I can't do that until I have $200 million worth of projects or I have 20 years of experience or doing those other things. And so it was like all limitations in the world are self-limitations. Mm-hmm. He just showed up and took action and put together a vision. And then what happens is people get attracted to that. They get attracted to that vision and they're like, I want to go do that too. And you might be able to give them a cut of the deal. You can give them a profit of the deal. They're excited about the project and they go, yeah, Jess, let's come on, Bonds, like, let's go get everything. Let's do it together. And then it's like, hey, they go do it because you put together a vision of here's where we're going. Most people want someone to lead where they're going. So the more convinced and more confident you are in your own vision, the more people that start coming along, the universe or God or the combination of all of that starts coming in alignment and the opportunities present themselves, the right people put it in place. And then you just start, and it's like,
that actually makes so much sense now that you said the vision part. At first I was like, well, yeah, of course, vision. But now that you explained it like that, I'm like, oh, it's how we've gotten to where we are now. We've done like $6 million in real estate at 25 because we had a vision and people believed in us and we did it. And obviously we probably could have done a better job looking back, but we still did it not because we had experience to do it, but because we had a vision and people subscribed to our vision.
But this is my question now, and that, we both have never struggled with vision. We're both that crazy, where I believe I can be a billionaire. I believe I can do anything I set my mind to. And so that's always guided us. And so then we come to this humbling place right now where you're catching us at a crazy place where we thought we could do it all. And if you ask me, I could be like, oh, I could build a skyscraper tomorrow. And now that I'm a little more humbled and I realize knowledge is really, really powerful. Right. Mm-hmm. How do you know that line between being a visionary and achieving it all and knowing that this might put other people in danger and might be like a bit more than you can chew?
Yeah.
Where's the line?
Yeah, you're saying because we over-visionized ourselves.
Yeah.
And we did $6 million our first deal and then lost a lot of money.
First 3 deals, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean like our first 3 deals and we lost a lot of money, but we were like, it was right away. Like we said go and we did 6 million right away. We didn't even have time to really gain those knowledge that we probably needed. So where's that line? Because now we're kind of defeated. We still want the vision, but we don't want the vision so much to where we're over leveraging
because
ourselves.
We were really lucky that like obviously and we would never lose our investors' money, so we're paying everybody out, and that's gonna Jessica and I, what we previously worked for years is now coming out of our pocket, so it's like we want to make sure, and obviously the timing is crazy and we jumped in the market at the wrong time, but that's something we've learned, so how do you know when you should go for it and when you should know your limitations as far as knowledge?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question. I think that's, only you truly know yourselves and what your capabilities. I actually think that, to your point, some people, overstretched, but also sometimes that's you're not living up to your full potential, and part of it is getting around other people and leveraging their mindset, getting around, experienced people. And oftentimes especially when I was as young, and, you want to trust your own gut, your own vision. And so just having an understanding that your opinion is probably wrong as a default. And then but you might be accurate in the, direction that you're going, and know that it's I'm not going to be 100% correct. And so if your plan requires, or your vision requires, that you're 100% correct to make money, and this is what I see something often with new investors, is they take the top comp, the best case scenario, the lowest construction price, the lowest interest rate. They take all of these things, and then they're like, I'm going to get the highest per sale price that's ever existed in this neighborhood. I'm going to get the contractor do it for this amount lower than everyone else. And I'm going to do it in this time period that is, maybe unrealistic. And I was like, people that are experienced, when you go talk to them and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking, I think one of the best ways to ask this question was something that I learned from Tom Bilyeu with Impact Theory, Quest Nutrition, was go ask people all the ways in which you're going to fail at the thing in which you're going to do. Most people want confirmation bias. They go out and they ask for advice, like, tell me why this is a good idea or how this is a good idea. And people are polite and they'll give you the 10%, advice, like put a 10% contingency on your construction price, or try to get, your debt levels not from 75 to 60%. They give you generalized, okay kind of information. But the more experienced that people are, and if you're coming with them and say, I need some advice and I want to know all the ways in which I'm going to fail in this venture, one, understanding that you're going to have enough confidence that this is the business idea or the plan that I'm going to move forward with. But I want to know all the landmines that I'm going to go step on and make mistakes on. People are much more open and almost revel at telling you why you're stupid, or at least why they tell me why I'm stupid, and I was like, you're dumb. You didn't think of this. You didn't think of that. This is going to be an issue. You haven't even come across this, and this is going to be a problem for you. And then you're like, oh. And so to me, it was also, humbling myself and going to that and be like, I don't actually know all of these things. And that's where I said in earlier in this interview was like, the more that I do that, the more that I realize I actually don't hardly know anything.
Wow. Okay. This is really, really amazing.
I wish we would have talked to you a while ago, huh?
I feel like we're getting the coaching.
I know.
But so if you could go back, we like to answer this question because obviously everybody loves their journey. But if you can go back now and start over, what would be your strategy and what would you do?
I would say cash flow, buying for cash flow earlier. So this is something that, as I've kind of done lots of flips, made lots of money for partners and paid lots of taxes and done all these other things. It's kind of equivalent to somebody that's like a high income earner. So like doctors oftentimes, or somebody that's a good salesman or engineer, they're making $1 million a year. They're really amazing real estate agent. They're making $1 million a year in commission. Well, what happens is they go like, hey, I'm going to go get into real estate, and they go buy deals. And there's no such thing as being a passive investor when you own the real estate. You're active. Yeah. And I don't care if it's a commercial shopping center, it's a high rise, it's a flip. You're involved because you have to deal with all of the problems as a whole. And so what happens is utilize that high income, those, and sometimes that is the flipping income, to start Now, investing into things that deliver passive income. So the cash flow, and what you're really trying to do is buy back your time. Your time is the most precious commodity that we all possess. The earlier that you get started on that, and then it's like, my goal is $1,000 a month in passive income, or 5,000 or 10,000. So oftentimes when I'm working with clients, like $10,000 is oftentimes like people's first like big like aha. If I can get $10,000 of passive income, I've achieved it. I'm good. I'm making 100 grand a year passively. This is amazing. Well, what happens is it's not enough for them. And then they go, it's like you get addicted, and then you're like, nah, I need more. I need more. I need more. And that's why it comes back to also this kind of framework is work through in what I call a dream life calculator. Put together, what would your dream life cost you?
Right.
And so there's many people, and especially as you get a little bit further on in your career, and if you're in your mid 30s, your 40s, and now you're making pretty good income, and then you just have like some grandiose idea, I need to make $2 million a year to live my lifestyle. Be like, okay, why? And so like break it down. What does your lifestyle, or I want to spend 3 months in, traveling. I want to go to Bali. I want to go to Ibiza. I want to go to wherever for 3 months of the year. I want to have a villa in Italy. I want to do these other things. Map all of that stuff out. And what the reality is start putting real numbers to it, because coming back to that vision and that synchronicity and that the self-fulfilling prophecy, the more real, the more specific that you get with your vision and your future, the more that it's just going to start coming in alignment and happening. And you may not want to own that villa in Italy, but you're like, I want to spend $20,000 a month renting someplace 3 months out of the year. So I need to generate at least $60,000 in income to afford living in the Four Seasons in Tulum. I want to do there, or, it's like, great, let's do that. Let's, plan and map that out. Once you understand what your goal is, then you can start reverse engineering the investment criterias that you need to start putting in place. I call this the passive wealth machine. And so like you put money in and you want more than $1 to come out. So, but is that come out in 3 years? Does that come out in 5 years? Does that come out in 10 years? The risk profile and the type of return that you're plugging into that then is going to ultimately allow your cash flow to buy back your time, that allows you to actually live the life that you truly, truly want. And that's what most people want with real estate. They actually want their time. They want freedom. They see it as like, oh, great, real estate is the avenue that's going to get me my free time and is going to make me all this money. But then oftentimes people get into it and they're like, man, managing this mobile home park in wherever sucks. I hate dealing with these contractors. I hate dealing with these leaky toilets. Like, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Real estate, boo. Like really what I want. And that's why is understanding the vision and defining like what it is that you want. And then you can reverse engineer to the path to where you're going. So for me, getting into passive income, horizontal income, making money while you sleep, would have been the thing I started way long.
And if you start with nothing as far as like an active income or maybe a normal job, what is your suggestion? I mean, I know that's why a lot of us flip. We flip for that active income so we can be able to have cash to be able to go buy the passive income. So sometimes it's stressful because even flipping, it's so full time. Like it's not, especially if you're doing multiple projects. So what would you suggest? Syndicating, like what's a way to kind of live, not have that active income while you're building passive income, or have money to invest to buy something that gives you passive income? I
started in that same place. I had to make money, flipping houses to make it to the next house, to make it to the next flip. So I would have been better about, making sure to invest a portion of each one of those into things that didn't require more of my time. So invest into a fund, into a debt fund, into a syndication. I wouldn't say I wouldn't have necessarily done that, but you're going to have to create sweat equity, finding a good deal, finding some other things for other people is if you don't have the income. Obviously, if you have money, it becomes much, much easier to buy back your time and leverage that. Like, hey, if you got $10 million, it's not too difficult to go make $1 million a year passive if you have $10 million that you're starting with. But let's just assume that most people are not starting with $10 million. So you're going to have to figure it out. And that's why it's like, okay, this year I'm going to do this amount into investments, this amount into an act. As each flip that I do, I'm going to take 20% and put it into a debt fund that doesn't take more of my time. And that's also understanding the time horizon that you're investing into. So you're like, if I do this every year on every flip over the next 10 years, and when I'm 35, I'll have $200,000 a year passive, and I'll be at a place that, lets me live the lifestyle that I want. But most people trade the short term for the long term. They take the money that they're going to make on that. And that was me to a T, absolutely taking every last dollar, betting on black and doubling down and doubling down and doubling down until I bust. And then it was like, oh no.
What's your goal now? Do you have like a number in mind passively that you want every month?
I love real estate. It becomes a game now. I do have, probably double my expenses and passive income now. But, so then the next is just moving the scoreboard up, moving it up to going from hundreds of thousands of dollars, go to $1 million. Okay, great. Go to $1 million. But it's also making sure to balance. And this was the biggest lesson that I learned was being solely focused on money. And money is maybe 1/6 of your life. So how are your relationships? How is your health? How is, your spirituality? How is your giving back? How is your adventure? How is your enjoying life? You mentioned it even earlier. It was like, man, it's a grind when you're flipping and it's stressful. Like, are you not going on vacation? Are you not enjoying yourself? Are you not doing things that fulfill you and give you more energy? So then that becomes, I was a millionaire in one area of my life, but I was probably bankrupt in the other 5 areas of my life way before it was in the money. And so it's like understanding is, so now I work out every single day. I take my family and my kids, we go to an international trip every year. So we do kind of a bucket list kind of adventure. Actually, Jesse Itchler gave me this advice about doing a masogi. A masogi is a one big thing each year that is a year-defining thing for you. So I'm climbing Mount Kilimanjaro
Oh my God,
this
cool.
year. And so then I got some buddies. So then it was like doing those things. I do family board meetings with my kids. So they get once a quarter, a day that's their day. I put on my calendar and my, kind of goal list is calling my parents, and having video calls with them to make sure that I'm spending time or connecting up with them because they're not, right close proximity to that. So that's what I say is, yeah, make sure you can gamify, making money. You can do that, but money's fake. Fugazi. The government just printed trillions of dollars. $1 million this year is going to be 10 cents, next year. So it's a game, but what is real is your time, your relationships, your health. I am a terrible husband. I'm a terrible business partner. I'm a terrible whatever if I'm dead. So are you paying attention to your health? Are you spending that time? So that you can fake the money. You can't fake those relationships. You can't fake that with other people. Are you there for others? Are you being fulfilled? And that's why I say it's not about the passive income. I love now coaching. I love helping other people start discovering some of this stuff, but I also love still doing deals. Like, it's kind of like you're a junkie. You're like, you want to look at a deal and you're like, yeah, I do. I want to look at all the deals. I want to do all the deals. And you're like, but also saying no to more of those becomes something that becomes, because it's like, yeah, that's a cool deal, but it's not for me. That's not what I do. You just gain that through wisdom as well. And people start looking at too many things, the options of everything. And that's why I say get very, very narrow focused, niche focused on one things. Be like a laser beam, only saying yes to those. You're going to have much better success when you get really, really specifically focused and expertise in one particular area. And then over 10 years or 20 years or whatever, you can be able to start broadening the things that you ultimately do.
I
This is
feel,
so helpful.
yeah, I really feel like we've had so many guests on our podcast and they've all been amazing, but
Yeah.
I think you're an amazing coach. I just felt like I got the most, like,
Yeah.
I would have paid big money for this life coaching
Yeah.
right now. So
Yeah.
you really are, I mean, just because also you understand all three pillars, and a lot of people who make money don't understand how important it is to have that balance in your life and the happiness in the family. So I think it's so important that you're teaching that. And then another thing in the beginning is so many of the gurus that we used to follow, it's amazing because it gets you excited. They're like, life's beautiful, buy this car, buy this jet, but it's also not realistic. And then you have this really big letdown because you think it's going to be easy. And so I think you give a really realistic, straight to the point, like, it's not easy, but it's possible. And I think that's so beautiful. And not many people, talk on the struggles that go with it. And then it's not going to be tomorrow you're going to have a Maserati or whatever you want. It's going to be, with some time, and you don't just be a billionaire or have all this passive income like some of these people say. So I really, really appreciate you.
Yeah. I'm not really speechless much, but I'm just like grasping everything that you're saying. I think because we're going through everything that you were saying and that pivotal moment that you were talking about in your book, we're going through that right now and we're living through it. And it's probably, I mean, it's a different experience looking back of going through something like this and actually being in it. Because when you're actually in it, you feel like your life's over. Like you feel like your career is over, your life's over. You're never going to get that money back again. And it's nice to hear your experience and where you are now, because you were able to put it into perspective and understand that, I mean, you were able to understand that it wasn't a complete loss, and the knowledge that you gained was worth way more than that, which is something that
Motivating.
Yeah, motivating.
So one last thing we like to always leave with our audience is your favorite piece of advice that you love to give. Like if you could only give one piece of advice to someone right now, what would it be?
Yeah, I was like, so the one piece of advice is take action. And to expound upon that is everybody thinks their idea is amazing, myself included. I think I have lots of amazing ideas, especially as, connecting with you guys, visionary kind of things. You're like, my idea is amazing. But everything's about execution and actually taking action. And so that the example of the kid that built the tower project in Miami, it was just because he took action that created an momentum. Things kind of come and get figured out. You don't need to see all of the steps of your journey. All you need to do is see the next step of your journey, and then the next step, and then the next step. You don't have to have all of the steps figured out to start taking action. And so just in general, take action. And guess what? You're going to make mistakes. There's been yet to be a person that is perfect other than Jesus, but other than that, nobody has been perfect in this world. And so understand you're going to make mistakes. Try to avoid, fatal mistakes or things that, completely go. But I was like, you're in your 20s. Yep. Go big. And that's the other thing. I was like, so between the action, I would have gone bigger earlier.
Wow. I love that. Well, I've learned so much, and I just want to say genuinely thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, because that's such an amazing thing when you go through all that to be at your age and have like the experiences that you have, and to take your time to share with others. I really appreciate it, and I know our listeners appreciate it too. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and Jake, thank you so much for being on here. I know people learned so much, and if you want to learn more, we'll put all of his handles and the websites below. Thank you so much.
Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and we will see you next week on Blondes Building Equity.